Do you suffer from stress, anxiety, or depression? Do you find it hard to focus or to contain your emotions? Any of these things can take you down. So, what then are your personal health practices? If you don't yet have an integral or holistic wellness practice, you're in the right place. Podcast host Susan Axelrod, the confidence coach, has been practicing holistic wellness for 25 years. Along the way, Qigong and Tai Chi found her. After tiptoeing in, she dove into a committed practice and became a teacher and integral wellness consultant. She'll tell you Qigong and Tai Chi changed her life. In this podcast, she interviews practitioners, inviting them to share their stories about how these practices changed their lives too. Go grab your journal. At the top of a clean page, write down, "I want to feel better." Then take a breath and tune in to see if Qigong and Tai Chi can help. Hello, friends. I have this huge smile on my face because every time I hear that sentence, "I want to feel better," I'm just infused with how much better I feel from having Qigong and Tai Chi in my life. So welcome to this episode. I am delighted to have Dr. Oley Smith as my guest today. If you have been watching these recordings, these podcasts, I am reading the bios directly. You don't usually hear me do that if you know me, but I'm reading the bios directly because I want to share with you the many different kind of people who practice this very special modality. Oley Smith is a certified senior and integral trainer with the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, and a master teacher in the Liu Family lineage of Medical Qigong with the Ling International Healing Qigong School. He received his doctorate in Acupuncture and Chinese Medicine from Daoist Traditions College of Chinese Medical Arts and has been practicing classical Chinese medicine in Durango, Colorado since 2005. He regularly leads classes and workshops focused on Qigong and Tai Chi. Hello, my friend. Great to see you.
Hi, thank you for having me on. This is great.
It's so my pleasure. First of all, respect. I want to make sure of my pronunciation because I forgot. I want to respect that. So,
Yeah, that is a mouthful to say.
I said the Liu family lineage. Is that correct?
It's Liu, Liu, Liu.
Okay, so the Liu, a master teacher in the Liu family lineage of medical Qigong. And then I said the other one, the
Ling Gui.
Lingwei. Okay, thank you. The
Yeah.
Lingwei International Healing Qigong School. So it's a language that we want to respect, and I wanted to respect the training.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So I want to say that I have been taking your classes for some time now, a few years. And honestly, I may cry. I could get emotional with how beautiful and amazing a teacher you are. So I want to say thank you so much. I mean every word. And you're not here because you're a teacher. You're here because you're a practitioner, which we will discuss. But I couldn't have you on without acknowledging how beautiful your teaching is, how powerful it has been for me personally, and how deep you can feel this. I call this a special modality coming out of you. So I truly mean that you really have been one of the instructors who has changed my life. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you for that. I am honored and humbled. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. So I want to get right into this with you. How has Qigong and Tai Chi changed your life?
Yeah. I feel like Tai Chi and Qigong has more, I guess, it's like it's informed my life and it continues to inform my life. I think that's, yeah, just I feel fortunate in that my background is Chinese medicine. It's something that I've been doing for a long time. It's something I was exposed to at a very young age, through my parents, taking me to see an old Chinese woman to give me acupuncture when I was 11 years old. That I feel like was when the door first opened, and having had a personal experience with something like acupuncture at that time in my life. As I got older, and you're in school, kids are talking about stuff and talking about things like that sound maybe a little woo-woo or different, like acupuncture or something like that. Like, is it real? And I had already had this experience of like, well, I had something physically going on with me, and I went in and I had this treatment, and I definitely had an experience during the treatment. And then the next day, what I went in for was resolved. So there was never a question to me of like, is this real? Is this something? It was like, well, that did something. It worked. And so, I had been exposed to it at a young age. And then when I graduated high school, I studied massage therapy and body work, and laid the foundation to then go in to do, typical undergrad pre-med type stuff, and then go studying Chinese medicine. And the school that I went to, I was fortunate enough to go to a school that the president of the school at the time felt that Qigong was the most essential aspect of the curriculum. Because again, it's not just Chinese medicine or Qigong. It's not just this abstract intellectual concept. It does have a very rich philosophical background and foundation in a lot of information. But there's also this aspect of embodiment of all of those things. And Qigong is the method of embodiment. And so, to really live these principles and experience them directly, and the impact that they have on, who and how we are, when in good and bad, and however, it just helps us to then understand how to apply it as a modality like Chinese medicine. But again, it's also just not a modality so much as it is a way of being. And so to say that Qigong and Tai Chi informs my life, it's like, that's what I mean by that. There are these core principles that I feel like anytime I'm engaging with anything or learning new information, watching, a movie about however, it's always going through a filter of these principles that provide the context for my understanding of my experience.
So I get you. I totally get it. And also now you're giving me this language, because I was fortunate to have a therapist at a time I needed one many years ago now. But she was an energy worker and an energy healer, even though I didn't know anything about energy then. And she was a talk therapist who worked out well for me. But I guess it was intended that I gleaned from her. And then learned from her. And then after that, Roger Yanka's book, The Healer Within, came into my life because somebody sent it to me out of the blue. So then I read that, and I talk about that in my introductory episode. And then I read that, then I gleaned further. And then I learned more. And then I decided to take the level 1 certification where you taught, and then the level 2 in Qigong, then the level 2 certification in Tai Chi where you also taught. And we learned the principles, which now I'm thinking maybe in the show notes somewhere in the introductory episode, I'm going to share the principles. But when you say it's a filter for you, I really get it. And I want to ask you to say, I get it, because that really is the language that I suddenly said to myself, oh my gosh, that is how I live my life now. Mm-hmm. So I want to invite you, remember, people watching this, it is intended by design for people who are not familiar with Qigong or Tai Chi, the principles, the Tai Chi pole, the dantians, to really learn one opportunity that in an area they can take control of their health and their wellness. Mm-hmm. So I want to invite you to say more about, the principles and how it's integrated.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be happy to. Um, there's something that gets talked about in the IIQTC trainings where there's this, descent from the one into the many, into the 10,000 things, which is just a way of saying everything is what the 10,000 things are. But, if we're starting from the one and just acknowledging that there is this oneness, there is this unity that we're all a part of, and within that, there is differentiation as well. And so that's from the one come the two. The two are yin and yang. And those are these primary principles. This is the primary dynamic that's going on. So whether that's the sun goes up and the sun goes down, or there's summer and then there's winter, or we inhale and then we exhale, or we wake up and then we go to sleep, all of the rhythms, all of those cycles, like that's yin and yang. And whether we're active and talking and extending out into the universe, whether we're more passive and receptive and receiving what's coming our way, like these are yin and yang. And so we can see how that shows up in the universe. The boundless sky above us, the solid earth below us, another yin and yang principle. And within yin and yang, you can always, divide it down into those. It's binary. It's circles and ones, it's something we can understand in modern times. And so there's the two. And then you have this interaction between yin and yang. And that interaction, that creates what we would call the three. So, there is the boundless sky above, there is the earth below, and there's that interpenetration of the two. And so that's how it can show up in the macrocosm. Again, boundless sky above, solid earth below, life in between, the interaction. That's the macrocosm. In the microcosm, within the body, we have the Jing, the Qi, and the Shen, like within an individual. So we have our physical substance, our earthly body. We have our immaterial mind that's expansive and abstract and kind of encompasses everything. And then there's the interplay of the body and the mind, which we would say is the Qi. And so that's the Jing, the Qi, and the Shen. So those are the three treasures. And when we take the three treasures, the body, the breath, and the mind, and we then superimpose this concept of yin and yang on top of those, we have a yin and yang aspect of the body, and that can show up again as activity and rest. We have the yin and yang aspect of the breath, which is inhalation and exhalation. We have a yin and yang aspect of the mind, which can be a focused, directed mind, or just a passive, expansive, observing mind. And so just those things, just understanding the unity of one, the differentiation of yin and yang, and the three treasures of the interplay of that, and then applying them, like that's principles that you can build a whole philosophy of life around, not only of how to interact in a moral and ethical way within your community, but also just how to interact with experience, with nature, and to be able to receive from nature, to be able to give to nature, to be able to take, but not take too much, to understand, where limits are appropriate to have, like where boundaries are good to have, where it's good to lean into the boundary and expand, where it's good to take your foot off the gas a little bit and allow some space to happen, whether it's eating until you're 70% full and leaving that 30% space for oxygen and fueling metabolic fire so you can digest, so that's some basic principles, yin and yang, the three treasures, how those can be applied, not only in a physical Qigong practice, but also, again, as a life science.
Oh my gosh. So I want to pause for a second and speak directly to our viewers and listeners and invite you to play this back. I really want to invite you to pause, grab a pen and pad, come back, play this episode over, and write down these principles. Oley, it's so, first of all, just the descent from the one to the many, to that what we call the 10,000 things. I lived the 10,000 things for the earlier years that led to my breakdown. then thank God I was fortunate to have a breakthrough. And then I found that therapist and so on and so forth to, sort of come back. And so then the yin and the yang, I love the way you describe the rhythms and the cycles. And then, of course, we have the three treasures. And so one of the things that I learned early, right at the beginning, from Dr. Roger Yanka, the head of the Institute of Integral Qigong and Tai Chi, was how I integrated it and now share it out, which is that I am perfectly situated between what you call the boundless sky above and the sacred earth below. And so the way you've described this is it's easy. It's 1, 2, 3. That's intentional. And then I wanted to just add this perfect alignment, because one of the things that I've learned from you and through my training is about this idea of alignment. And you talked about the three treasures: the body, breath, and mind. And as you taught us in our more advanced training, right, we're going into the more advanced, the level 2. Now you're 3 months into the level 2. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're bringing us back to the basics. You said to us, let's not forget Qigong and, the basics. We sort of came back around to that. And that's where we basically come into that aligned way of being. I need to say this. I really, my intention here is to introduce people to this special modality, as I call it. So you got introduced at 11, and then possibly you might not have been the same as everybody else as you moved on this path, a 22-year-old man studying massage therapy instead of, I don't know what else, but I want to really talk for a moment about how learning these principles that you just shared in the most beautiful way, the body movement, the mind focus, how it can support our younger professionals, our younger generations, if they find us, hear us, listen, and begin to integrate. What do you think about this idea of our younger generations learning this early?
Oh, I think that would be wonderful. I think that would have a huge impact. I think for a number of different reasons. The first one that comes to mind is just that these practices, as far as looking at them in terms of health practices, health and wellness practices, these are empowerment practices. And so this is something that people can do for themselves, and they can do it to help themselves feel better and recover from things and find balance if they're out of balance. But I think from that then comes the understanding that it's like, oh, right, like when I'm not feeling well, there are things that I can do myself whenever I need to do them for free. No appointment necessary. I don't need to give my power away to anyone else. I don't have to call anybody and wait for a call back. I don't have to deal with paying for it, figuring out how I'm going to pay for it. I don't have to deal with driving downtown and finding a parking place and then going and working with someone, and maybe it feels like a good fit and maybe it doesn't feel like they're hearing what I need. There's none of that. All of that is not even a factor in the equation, because it's something that we're doing for ourselves. And when you have that experience of, I feel good, I feel strong and stable and clear and present and empowered, and that's something that I just did by myself, doing something with things I already have. I already have a body, I'm already breathing, and I already am thinking with my mind. And so just with some focused concentration and intentionality around each one of those things, I am now feeling strong and healthy. And so that in and of itself, I think is worth just that. I think that that's one thing. And then I feel like the lessons that then we open ourselves up to by being empowered and knowing how to empower ourselves, then it starts to go beyond wellness and health practices that we're doing, that's again where it starts to become integral. That's one of the things that drew me to the IIQTC and Roger's teachings and curriculum, because of the word integral. Essentially, I was familiar with that, and Ken Wilber and the integral operating system, that resonated with me strongly, still does. I see I'm already deep into Qigong. I find the Integral Institute, so here we go. And then it lived up to the billing, which I appreciate. And so,
yeah, of course.
But this idea of it being integral, in that the alignment, like there's an alignment of the body, you physically align your body, and there are physiological and psychological benefits from just doing that. But then there's also the invitation, and it just kind of happens spontaneously, where then we begin to consider an alignment outside of the context of the body. And what does it mean to be in alignment, like in my life? In alignment with what? In alignment with values that then might guide choices that I'm making. Do my choices line up with what I profess to be, or what I aspire to be? And am I taking the time to be still enough to where I can actually take stock of those things? And that if I'm not in alignment, I can breathe into what that feels like and allow that to then access aspects of my own consciousness that can inform what I need to do to come into greater alignment, which then makes it more possible for me to be in alignment in my body when I'm doing my practices. So I feel like bringing that, not only the empowerment of you can take care of yourself and you can heal yourself for free, and in doing that, you're also then becoming the type of person who lives in the type of world that you want to live in.
That was so good. Oh my gosh. I just had that energy again. Like, I want to invite people to pause again, rewind to that, and understand what it is that you're saying. So for full disclosure, when I started, and we're going hands up, hands down, hands up, hands down. We're breathing, we're standing with just the flowing motion over and over. At first, it was almost like an irritant to me. Like, what is this? This is like boring and not really working. But within minutes, so to speak, in quotation marks, very shortly, very soon, I really, truly, definitely did begin to integrate exactly what you're talking about. And I just can't say how much it, so I wrote down integral alignment with the other things, outside of us, and also within. And I have, for a long time, since earlier years of type A, have had such a deep desire to be more in the alignment of which you speak. I would do anything for it. And now I do, so it really, I just can't say how much I am the living experience of what you have described. So we just have another minute or two. And I want to say another thing that I've observed in your teaching is how much stillness supports. So, but I think it just came to me, one of the things that you've taught me the most, and I really want to ask you to take a minute to speak on it, is about the self-massage. I really, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's just part of your regular practice, but it really has spoken to me. The face, you don't have to do your face today on camera, but just to speak about, the self-massage.
Yeah, the self-massage is something, so I teach a weekly class, and just about every class, the class is an hour and a half long, and just about every single class begins with a self-massage that typically lasts close to a half an hour.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And just because, the self-massage, we can all use a massage, basically. And it kind of goes back to even thinking about this as a health and wellness practice that you can do for yourself, that you don't have to pay for. And, and the self-massage, the way it's designed, I mean, it's definitely can be a longer conversation about how it's designed and how it kind of accesses the nervous system. But again, it's this thing that we can do for ourselves anytime for free. Like when you were talking about the benefit it would have on young people, it's like, I mean, I remember in high school or college or early 20s, people are smoking, they're talking about cigarette breaks and wanting to do that and this and that. And I always think when I'm doing the self-massage, like how different the world might be if instead of taking a 5-minute cigarette break, we took a 5-minute self-massage neck break, self-neck massage, and just did that for 5 minutes and just relax.
So here's what I would like to do. If you're willing, I really would like to do a second episode on this conversation, a brief 20-minute on this conversation, because I learned this from you and from, Dr. Yanka and the other. I really think that this is a worthy conversation. Would you be willing to do that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We can do a self massage.
Okay.
Or talk about the benefits.
We could talk about it. We could show it. And so, what I want to say is, so I'll get to you on that. We'll schedule that. But what I want to say is, I notice how much the high level expert and the trainer and the teacher that you are have to repeat the basics. That was for me when it was basic for me. Now we're having this very basic conversation, talking about the basics with the intention and commitment of edifying people to whom it is new. And so I'm aware that, you keep getting asked to review the basics. So I want to say thank you for that. And I can't say how important it is, because we want more people to hear even these very basic ideas and principles. So I want to say thank you so much for being here today. I will be contacting you. We're going to schedule that next episode. And for anyone lucky enough to see it, perhaps we'll actually do some self-massage. Thank you so much, Oley.
Thank you. And I would also just offer, it's not the basics, it's the foundation. And the foundation is essential. And spending your whole life at the foundation will get you everywhere that you want to go. So I wouldn't think of them as basic or unnecessary or rudimentary or anything. This is what it always comes back to. This is where it always begins. It's where it always ends up. No matter how far you go, how much you practice, you will be right where what we've been talking about. So I'm happy to talk about these things anytime, as you can tell.
Yeah.
So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. That was so good. Oh my God. This episode is going to be so good. I watch all my podcasts over, so I will have a pen and pad with all of these episodes, and I hope our viewers and listeners will too. Okay, my friend, I'll be in touch. Good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.